Welcome to Pro Football First 50 Years, where we take the past and we bring it back to life. Now, I'm strictly talking the first 50 years here, 1920 to 1970. Obviously, you can go online and you can, look up a box score, especially if you're going to go to a game way back in the 20s or like the 30s. You can find, who won, who lost, who scored a touchdown, how far a field goal was, someone kicked, what the attendance was, where the game was played at. You might even be able to find starting lineups for each team. But exactly what happened during the game? Well, thanks to old newspaper articles, we get to take a little bit of a deeper dive into each and every game during the first 50 years of professional football. Now, a little news flash here for you. Ain't no fancy videos here or nothing like that. All there is you and me for the next 30 to 60 minutes. So if that's all right with you, let's get it on. And today's game, the second game of the NFL season, 1959 for both these teams. The New York Giants visit the Philadelphia Eagles at Franklin Field, October 4th, 1959. Very good season for both teams. Very, very. The Giants, obviously, in 1958, they won the Eastern Division, went to the championship game, lost, some people say the greatest game. Yeah, it was the greatest game, but it might have been maybe the most important game ever played. But so the Giants had high expectations for this year once again, and this would would not let them down. Had another good year this year, won the Eastern Division, went to the championship game. But for the Eagles, this was a very good season as well, too. The Eagles the year before, in 1958, won 2 games. But, that's bad. I don't got to be rocket science to figure that out. But what you want to do is if you win 2 the next year, you want to go up. And they went from 2 wins in 58 to 7 wins in 1959. Then, of course, in 1960, they won the whole kit and caboodle. So the Eagles were, on their way. Now, Eagles were a very good team for during quite a little while here, especially in the late 40s. They went to 3 straight championship games. They lost the 47 one, but they won the 48. They won the 49. Heck, they might even gone to the 50 championship game if it wasn't for the Cleveland Browns coming over from the All-American Football Conference. So, the Eagles were a good team for a while. Said this was a very good year. The Giants only lost 2 games all year. This would be one of them. Let's take a look at the schedules. I said the Giants Giants had the best record in football. Didn't help them when it came to the championship, but overall, at the end of the season, the Giants were 10-2. Best record in football. I said the Eagles are 7-5, had nothing to be ashamed of. I said you win 2. They have 2-9-1 in 58. You go from 2-9-1 to 7-5. Basically, it was the same thing as what happened with the Packers. The Packers won 2 games in 1958. Was it 2 or was it 1? Let's see here. Where did the Packers win there? 1. I'm sorry, 1-10-1. That's why that's why it didn't sound right. The Packers won 1 game. They were 1-10-1, and then they won 7. You go from 2 with the Eagles. Anyway, you go from 2-9-1 to 7. Excellent season. This game here, as I said, was share. Let's see here. Share screen. It changes up here a little bit. See with the Packers here. With Vince Lombardi's first year as coach here with the Packers, they're 7-5. Fantastic season. But the Giants had a mediocre exhibition. Once again, it was an exhibition. They were 3-3. They were playing all over the freaking place. The Giants haven't even played in Yankee Stadium yet. This is the second game. They played 8 games. This will be the 8th game. 6 preseason games, 2 regular season games. The Giants hadn't played at Yankee Stadium yet, and they still wouldn't play Yankee Stadium for another 2 weeks. Basically, because obviously they're playing in Yankee Stadium, sharing the stadium with the Yankees. There's always that possibility that the Yankees might go to the World Series, and they're not going to have the Giants out there running around, chewing up the field where the Yankees play at, especially if the World Series is going to be. So the Giants did wind up playing their first home game until they played a rematch against the Eagles on October 18th. So in 2 weeks. So the Giants wound up playing 9 games before their 10th game of the season, including the exhibition they finally play at home. As I said here, you see here, Giants won the first game. They lucked out. The Rams missed a field goal right in the final minute of the game. It was just wide. Well, the Rams would have won that game. But the Eagles here, scored 49 points on the Giants. Now, the Giants had the best defense in the NFL. Giants basically gave up almost 30% of their total points for the year in this one game. They gave up 170 points all year long. 49 of them were in this one game. Now, you'll notice also, the Giants, it was good, very, very good. Tom Landry was their defensive coordinator. They gave up 49 points in their next 6 games combined. Now, it wasn't so much the defense's fault in this game, as we'll say. The offense, the special teams in the offense. The offense gave up a lot of turnovers, and the special teams was atrocious. So, Giants played a sloppy game, and the Eagles made them pay for it, big time. But you'll see the Giants lost this one game to the Eagles, and then they lost another one here to the Pittsburgh Steelers at Yankee Stadium in November. Bobby Lane hit Tom Tracy with it was like a 45 or 46-yard touchdown pass in like about the final minute of the game, and they just lost that one. But other than that, the Giants just they won. They won out. It just goes to show you any given week, anything can happen. The Giants give up 49 points here to the Eagles. The next week they go on the road and play in Cleveland. You got Bobby Mitchell and Jim Brown in the backfield. Holy cow. That scared the crap out of you. Well, the Giants gave up 6 points to those guys. So any given week, things change. But you see, it was a very good season for the Giants. I say many a time, the 59 championship game, the Colts was 31-16, but the Giants were actually winning that game going into the final period 9-7. But all heck broke loose for the Giants in the fourth quarter. Colts scored 24 straight points within like 6-7 minutes stretch, and it was 31-9 before you can bat your eye. And then Giants scored a touchdown just before the game was over, but to make it look almost somewhat kind of respectable. But anyway, I said here, right? The Eagles, whatever. They were 2-4 in the exhibition. It is what it is. Actually, it's funny because the Giants and Eagles actually played each other in the preseason. They played at Hershey, Pennsylvania, at Hershey Stadium. And the Eagles would wind up winning that one too. But you'll notice here, the Eagles, they lost to the 49ers, then they won, right? Yeah, they would kind of win a couple, lose one, The Eagles actually, going into this game here, they still had a chance to win the division, or at least maybe help tie, maybe for the division, and maybe go into the playoffs, try to win a playoff game or something. But coming into this game here, the Giants had 2 losses, so with 3 games left, and the Eagles had 3 losses. So the Eagles really needed to help kind of win out and hope that the Giants would falter. But the Giants wouldn't falter. The Giants would win out. The Eagles would lose this one here, 31-0. And then even going to these final 2 games, the Eagles still had a chance. The Eagles would have to win out their final 2, which they didn't do. And the Giants would have to lose their final 2, which they didn't do. So, well, all in all, I said, very, very good season for the Philadelphia Eagles. I said, 2-9-1, Buck Shaw, did a phenomenal job. 2-9-1 in 1958, 1959 they go 7-5-1, in 1960 they win all championships. So a very good season for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now the game was played at good old Franklin Field. Now, of course, the biggest, from what I remember, there was 2 of them that I remember. Being a Giant fan that I am, the one, not the most important or the most famous one that I remember, but it was the first Monday night game ever that the Eagles and the Giants played. They played each other at Franklin Field in November 1970. Eagles would wind up winning that one. But that was in Franklin Field. That's one of the ones that I remember from Franklin Field. But the biggest one would be the 1960 championship when, as I keep mentioning, the Eagles would beat the Green Bay Packers 17-13. Right. All right, so let's go here. Share the screen. It's a little bit of Wikipedia action here. Where are we at here? All right, Franklin Field. Wikipedia. All right, just an old time, venue. Gotta love it. Gotta love those old time venues. Outdoors, I gotta love it. I'm not exactly sure. It looks like right now it's some type of artificial turf that they got in there. So not a big fan of that, but it's an old venue. It's still around and it's outside in the elements. So I give them one and a half thumbs up. Not I can't give them 2 thumbs up because I don't think it's on grass, but Franklin Field is a sports stadium in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, at the eastern edge of the University of Penn campus, named after Penn's founder, Benjamin Franklin. It is the home stadium for the Penn Relays. Very, very famous up here. I'm about literally 20 minutes or so, 20, 25 minutes, depending upon how fast you drive and depending upon traffic and all from the Walt Whitman Bridge, which is right by South Philly. And, so the Penn Relays is very famous around here. Let's see, the Franklin Field is for the Penn Relays, the university's venues for football, track and field, and lacrosse. Franklin is also used by Penn students for recreation, intramural, and club sports, including touch football and cricket. It's also the site of Penn's commencement exercises, weather permitting, of course. Franklin Field is the oldest still operating college football site in the nation. Wow. Franklin Field was the first college stadium in the United States with a scoreboard and the second with an upper deck of seats. Wow. 1922, it was the site of the first radio broadcast of a football game on WIP, which is still around today, as well as the first television broadcast of a football game by Philco. From 1958 through 1970, Franklin Field was the home of the Philadelphia Eagles. Ta-da! Because in 1971, they built the Veterans Stadium, the Ball. I mean, it's near and dear to my heart because when I moved here in 1977, I saw a couple of Eagle games. But anytime I saw, obviously, the Phillies play, was always at the Vet. That's if you ever, it's the 700 level at the Vet. That's where a lot of the fights happen. Let me tell you what. But that's near and dear to my heart. But I was never very fond of it. Just a big ball, the artificial turf. I hated it. But let's see. And obviously, of course, the Franklin Field hosted the championship game in 1960. Oh, is that there you go. Oh, no, Cleveland Browns. I don't know what that is. All right. So around 1860, the grounds of what became Franklin Field served as a potter's field. Franklin Field was built for $100,000. Wow. Unbelievable. And dedicated on April 20th, 1895. So $100,000 in 1895. Nice chunk of change. But you can see it was equivalent to just under $4 million nowadays. So it was dedicated April 20th for the first running of the Penn Relays. So basically, the Penn Relays has been around for like 100, for about 140 years. No. I'm a moron. 130 years. To apologize. The field supplemented and eventually replaced a venue called University Athletic Grounds. Permanent Franklin Field construction did not begin until after the turn of the century. Let's see. They did, I guess, rebuilding of it. Say here. Workmen laying bricks on the south wall of the Franklin Field in 1922, the rebuilding in 1922. The current stadium structure was built in the 1920s, designed by Day and Clowder after the original wooden bleachers were torn down. The old wood stands were raised immediately following the Penn Relays, and a new concrete lower tier and seating for 50,000 were built. The second tier was added in 1925. when it became the second and largest two-tiered stadium in the United States. And you can see it right here. I mean, Franklin Field during a 1925 Penn football game. I mean, it's just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful stadium. I mean, absolutely fantastic. So, I mean, there you go, right here, right? Is pretty much it right now. It has the open end to it. I mean, just looks absolutely fantastic. Once again, it's still there. It's outdoors. 1.5 thumbs up. Can't give them 2 because it's artificial turf here, but it's still around. So, Penn Quakers football was there. I mean, look at it. Look at this. I mean, holy crap. Penn hosts Harvard at Franklin Field, undated from a 1905 book. I mean, look at this. So obviously, it changed. The stadium's changed a little bit, but I mean, look, they had squares out there on the field. I mean, crazy. The Eagles. See, here we go. All right. So, I mean, how freaking beautiful is that? I mean, that is absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Stadium Field House at the West End during the Penn Cornell football game in 2005. Absolutely beautiful. The Eagles played at Franklin Field from 58 to 70. They moved to the stadium for the 58 season after leaving Connie Mack Stadium. Franklin Field would seat over 60,000 for the Eagles, whereas Connie Mack had a capacity of only 39,000. According to the then Eagles president, the Eagles did not pay rent for use of Franklin Field because Penn was a not-for-profit organization. Instead, the Eagles donated between $75,000 and $100,000 per year to pay for maintenance and other expenses. The university collected all concessions and parking revenue. So the Eagles saved themselves some money, right, by not paying rent, but they donated some money. But, the university, as you see here, right, anybody buying a Coke, anybody buying a program, any parking fees or anything like that, that was all in the university. And this is going to be in next week's game, very sadly. On October 11, 1959, NFL Commissioner Burt Bell died at the nearby University Hospital after suffering a heart attack at Franklin Field during the last 2 minutes of the game between the Eagles and the Steelers. So that's in week 3. It's very, very sad because Burt Bell was a really popular NFL commissioner. Of course, the Eagles, where Santa Claus was booed during the 1968 season finale against the Vikings. Christmas show was playing at halftime. The struggling Eagles entered the game at 2-11, and the fans were less than pleased. Into the game where Joe was going for. Fortunately, the main meant that to play Santa was unable to make it to Franklin Field due to the bad weather. In lieu of the original halftime show, a 19-year-old fan named Frank Olivo came to the stadium already wearing a Santa Claus costume, was invited onto the field to toss candy canes to the cheerleaders. Frustrated by the team, the ugly, wet weather, and his unconvincing beard, fans booed Olivo and threw snowballs at him. This incident is often referred to by sportscasters in denigrating Philadelphia sports fans as being so mean that they booed Santa Claus. Yep. Olivo continued to attend Eagles games and even made a return as Santa Claus 4 decades later at the Eagles' December 27, 2009 game against the Broncos. This time, Olivo was not targeted by snowballs. He died in 2015 at the age of 66. Yeah, this one here. This is the one. This is the football game I remember. But I mean, look here, right? I mean, just real fast here. Army-Navy game in 1908. Place is freaking packed. But this is the football game I'm talking about. The first ever Monday night game for the Giants and the Eagles. They played each other. In the first season of Monday Night Football in 1970, Howard Cosell was apparently drunk during the Eagles-New York Giant game on November 23rd. Yeah, he was drunk. After throwing up on color commentator Don Meredith's cowboy boots shortly before halftime. Cosell left the stadium and took a taxi back to New York City. Meredith and play-by-play announcer Keith Jackson made little mention of his departure during the second half. Later denying drunkenness, he was drunk. Cosell said that he had been dizzy from running laps around Franklin Field's track before the game with track star Tommy Smith. No, he was drunk. He was definitely drunk. All right, so let's guys, I got some pictures here. All right, here we go. Eagles. Right, here we go. Here's the 60 championship game right here. Is a nice picture here. This one here. This is the two Hall of Famers, Sonny Jurgensen and Tommy McDonald, walking off the field together. This is a game against the Giants. Beautiful, beautiful shot, man. That's unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. I mean, look, once again, I'm an old-time fart, so you got to forgive me, but that's as I said, I'm not a fan of the artificial turf, but unbelievable stadium. Here's the 19. Let's see. Can anyone figure out the game, the date? Well, it's time. I mean, it looks like they're playing possibly the Browns. Anybody can figure out the date? No, it looks like the Falcons. They played the Falcons. But in 1969, they put artificial turf in there. So, once again, not a fan of that. Yeah, just some. They didn't play there for a real long time. Let's see the Eagles. There we go. Right. This is Mean Joe Green right here. 1969, Franklin Field. Steelers at the Eagles. September 28th, 1969. This was probably the first game of the season. Let me see. Let's take a look here. Previous season for the Eagles. Oh no. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going the wrong way. That was probably the first game of the season for the Eagles, and this might have been rookie Joe Green's first ever game. But I mean, I said I love it, but I mean, this artificial turf has to go. But I mean, once again, looks absolutely fantastic. Maintained up. It looks like it's up. Obviously, I don't visit there, but I mean, it looks like it's certainly taken good care of it. I mean, the field is absolutely, beautiful, but I just love grass. I don't, And there's an old time shot of it. And here we go. Is this one too? Don't know. That one I don't know. Here we go. Franklin Field, look at that. I mean, got snow on the outside. I have no idea what this is here. But, the place is freaking packed. Snow around the field. I mean, gotta love it. Absolutely love it. All right, well. And here we go. I'm going to say that's probably one of Paul Hornung trying a field goal. I mean, look at it, the background is just, really, really pretty. But I mean, just beautiful. I mean, the color and all of that stuff and everything's just unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. All right, so let's go. So we got a little bit of pregame action here. So what do we got here? We got the Philadelphia Inquirer, the October 4th, 1959 edition of the Philadelphia Inquirer. Just a little pregame action here. All right. I got to find it first. All right, here we go. Eagles hope for repeat win against the Giants. The Eagles, smarting from a poor performance in San Francisco, will endeavor to repeat history when they open their home campaign against the formidable New York Giants at Franklin Field Sunday afternoon at 1:35. Last season, the Eagles lost their National Football League opener to the Washington Redskins, but rebounded sharply to jolt the Giants in their second game here. That was true. I mean, once again, the Giants, won the Eastern Division in '58, but one of their losses was to the Eagles at Franklin Field. So the Eagles, always played the Giants. And even when the Giants beat the Eagles later on in this season, 1959, it was a close game. So sometimes, as they say, you got those division games, they know each other too well. You can always, especially with the frickin' Eagles and the Giants, you can I mean, even when the Giants are good and they're playing the Eagles, you can always throw the record books out. Last season, the Eagles lost but I did that. It was the first of 3 losses suffered by the New Yorkers before they stowed away the Eastern Division crown. So basically the Giants, they say here, the Giants in 2 seasons lost 5 games. 2 of them were the Eagles at Franklin Field. And I said in this one, they got blown out. The Giants would give up literally 30% of the points they gave up all season long in this one game. Giants, with virtually the same team again, come to town feeling quite chipper as a result of a come-from-behind 23-21 victory over the highly regarded Los Angeles Rams. Well, this would be a horrible season for the Rams. They've been made slight favorites by the smart money boys, which figures, but this status certainly won't make them take things for granted. They realize nothing but a top performance will suffice here. That's exactly the opposite of what the Giants gave. A top performance. Now the Giants, sloppy game, horrible game, and they got blown out. The Eagles made them pay for it. Since the Eagles beat them 21-17 on a long run by Walt Kowalczyk in a preseason game at Hershey, the first preseason game of the season for these 2 teams, the Eagles are primed for an all-out effort similar to the one that led to a crushing victory over the champion Baltimore Colts in their preseason home appearance earlier in the month. They know full well that not only their title hopes, but possibly their jobs as well hinge on the outcome. Coach Buck Shaw warned Tuesday of a shakeup if there wasn't an improvement on the 24-14 loss to the 49ers. There are 18 new players for the Eagles, and 8 of these, including 3 rookies, will be on the starting units. The starting rookies are J.D. Smith, the 250-pound tackle from Rice, Jerry DeLuca, another tackle from Middle Tennessee, and defensive halfback Gene Johnson, 9th draft choice from Cincinnati. It's possible that Darryl Ashbacher, rugged recruit from Oregon, may start at offensive left guard since he appears recovered from injuries received at Los Angeles. However, original plans call for Jerry Huth, a Giants cast-off, to answer the opening whistle at the position. Most promising rookie with the Giants is Joe Morrison. Now, Joe Morrison would play for the Giants in 3 different decades. He would make it to 1972, I believe it was, with the Giants before. So he hung around for the Giants for a long time. He's a 194-pound halfback from Cincinnati who may start if veteran Alex Webster isn't fully recovered from a rib injury. Every sign points to an aerial battle since passing whiz Norm Van Brocklin is the Eagles' big gun, and the Giants are relying more than ever on the pitching of old Chuck Connolly in an open-up offense. Now, the Giants would actually outgain the Eagles in this, but I said, turnovers and the horrible special teams plays by the Giants, the Eagles made them pay for it. Against the Rams, Connolly completed 21 of 31 passes for 321 yards and 1 touchdown. Van Brocklin, who had one of his poorest days against the 49ers, is eager to prove it was all a mistake. How teams compare statistically in games played this season. It's kind of tough, because the Eagles, they played 2 different teams, So, but you see, the Eagles did not have a very good outing. They only had 15 first downs. They didn't have 300 total yards of offense, 21 of 40 passing, And there's Connolly right there. I think that's it, right? And this here's the Eagle Giant lineup. The offensive players. And here is the rest of the guys and the whatever backups they might have. Yeah, but as you see, I mean, if you look right here, right? I mean, you'll see 11 guys here, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. You only have 36 guys. Nowadays, I think they have 46 guys. You got a 53-man roster, but you can only dress, I think it's like 46. Right? So, I mean, back then they only had 36 guys that they dressed. Yeah, so. All right. So let's see. Now we got another one here from the Newsday, the Suffolk edition Newsday, the October 3rd, 1959 edition of the Newsday, the Suffolk County. There's in Long Island, there's Nassau County and Suffolk County. This is the Suffolk County edition. This is from October 3rd now. So there's like a little bit of a New York flavor to it here. Let's stop sharing. Let me find this one here. There we go. It's a little something here. Giants favorite, but remember last year where they wound up going into Philadelphia against a bad team and the Giants lost. The Giants travel to Philadelphia tomorrow to play the Eagles in the kind of game they should win, but that's the kind they lose too often. Sometimes they play down to their opponents. Much of the same situation last season, the Giants were slapped down by the Eagles. One of the two games the Eagles were able to win all last year. Today's game will be televised at 1:35 p.m. on Channel 2, which is New York. When I was growing up, I guess the Giants were Channel 2 and the Jets from the AFC, right, were Channel 4. And ABC had Monday Night Football, which was Channel 7, I believe it was. So our football games when I was growing up in the early 70s was Channel 2, Channel 4, Channel 7. Let's see. New York won last week over the Rams, taking the first step toward retaining the Eastern Division NFL honors. The Giants had the edge in virtually every department you'd care to name, yet the Eagles took their cue from Norm Van Brocklin and scored a 21-17 exhibition victory several weeks ago. That was the game that they played each other in Hershey Park. Hershey, Pennsylvania. Hershey Stadium. The defending league champion Baltimore Colts are favored by 6.5 points to defeat the Bears at Baltimore tonight. All other games are tomorrow. New York is pegged as a 6-point favorite, I guess, over the Eagles. The Cards are 2.5. The Chicago Cards are 2.5 over the Browns. Wow. Really? The Pittsburgh Steelers upset winners over the Browns a week ago, are favored by 7.5 over the Redskins. The Rams are 4 over the 49ers, and the Green Bay Packers are shaky 1-point choices over the Lions. Let's see. Walt Yawarski, former Giant end who has replaced the late Jack Lavelle as head scout, came back with a book full of diagrams that indicate a Giant victory in the offing. But there's always Van Brocklin, the Dutchman, now in his 11th NFL season, as top receivers. Oh, yeah, I mean, but Pete Retzlaff and Tommy McDonald, Ken McAfee, Dick Bielski, and Bobby Walston. Oh, yeah. Dr. Francis Sweeney, Giant physician has ruled out starters Alex Webster and rookie and Joe Biscaha, I guess. Webster has a painful rib injury. Biscaha a shoulder separation. Without Webster, the Giant attack featuring backfield coach Ali Sherman's classy new man in motion cannot be at its strongest. Yet rookies Joe Morrison and George Scott showed so well recently the bench strength is adequate, at least. Fullback Mel Triplett hasn't been in perfect health, so Phil King might get the call. Frank Gifford and Charlie, who else, Connolly, take care of left half and a quarterback. Old Charlie hit 21 of 31 tosses, playing all the way against LA, and was radared in on Bob Schnelker, who grabbed 8 passes for 171 yards and a touchdown. George Shaw is the man Connolly is keeping in the wings. All right, so let's go. We got a New York Times article here. Let's see here. That was interesting because the week before, when the Giants played out in Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, the game started at 8. It was a Saturday game. Started at 8:15 or 8:30 out there. So the game didn't start till after 11 o'clock at night in New York. And one of the papers, that was the Daily News, didn't even have the final score of the game because the game ended so late. But let's see, we got what we got here. The New York Times. Here we go. Eagles rout Giants. McDonald scores 4 times. Tommy McDonald. But here, I believe this is Frank Gifford running in. Up the middle. Frank Gifford of the Giants goes through the Philadelphia line to score a touchdown during the second quarter. The Eagles have Giants 49-21 in the game played yesterday at Franklin Field. McDonald of Eagles tallies on 3 passes and an 81-yard punt return. Yeah, the Giants' special teams was absolutely atrocious. But you'll notice here, right, the Giants outran the Eagles. They had more first downs. They had the same amount of passing yardage. Giants completed 19 of 33. They did 15 of that. But you'll notice here, right, passes intercepted by the Eagles, picked off 2 passes, and the Giants lost 3 fumbles. The Giants lost at 5 turnovers. The Eagles didn't turn the ball over 1 time. And not only mention that, but as I said, the Eagles ran a punt back for a touchdown, and I believe they ran another kickoff back for almost a touchdown. A guy fell down at like the 1 or 2 yard line. So, but John, another thing I do notice is it really remarkable. I mean, unless there's like a lot of fights or something crazy, there's not a lot of penalties that got called back then. Isn't that right? All right, penalty yards. The Eagles had 15 penalty yards and a Giant 25 between both teams. I mean, holy cow! Nowadays, I mean, sometimes you can't even watch the games. It's just so the refs make it almost unbearable to watch sometimes. But every other play, there's a penalty. It really is a joke nowadays. And the thing is back then, I got guys like beating the crap out of you, hitting each other in the head and all kinds of stuff like that. And, there was no penalty call. There are no soft touches in the National Football League. The Giants learned this sad lesson all over again today. Their stern teachers were the Eagles. In the 80-degree heat at Franklin Field, the Philadelphia 11, generally considered the team least likely to succeed in the Eastern Division. Well, that would be wrong. Handed the fearsome 49-21 hiding to the favored New Yorkers. Tommy McDonald greased the skids under the Giants by breaking away for 3 long-range touchdowns, 2 on pass receptions, and 1 on a punt return in the first half. The fleet Oklahoman subsequently scored a 4th touchdown on another pass reception in the 4th quarter. In the 3rd period, under the impetus of an opening 95-yard kickoff return by Art Powell, the Giants came completely apart. The Eagles rammed across 3 more touchdowns in this gruesome period. Too little, too late. With the issues settled, the Giants pulled themselves together long enough to score a couple of consolation touchdowns in the last quarter, but by this time, nobody much cared. All right. As bad as things were on this dark day for Jim Lee Howe's Chargers, they might have been worse. At the outset, the Eagles fluffed a glowing chance to score when Norman Van Brocklin failed to hit a wide-open receiver in the end zone. He also missed a 40-yard and a 36-yard field goal attempts. However, when it counted most, the sharpshooting Van Brocklin delivered for his team at 12:18 of the first quarter. Didn't take long, huh? He lofted a perfect pass into the arms of Tommy McDonald, who was in the clear inside the Giant 5-yard line. This 33-yard touchdown play, which capped a 5-play advance of 65 yards, gave the lead to the Eagles, and they never relinquished it. The next time Philadelphia was in possession, the Van Brocklin-McDonald combination clicked again, with scoring result for 55 yards at 3:15 of the second quarter. It was a simple enough play. McDonald stationed as a flanker on the right, raced straight downfield, but Lyndon Crow, the Giants' defensive corner man on that side, simply couldn't stay with Tommy. On his second scoring thrust, no Giant could stay with McDonald. He gathered in a punt by Don Chandler on the Eagle 19-yard line, circled back to the left, picked up a block from Powell that enabled him to turn downfield and raced 81 yards untouched, as Bob Pellegrini erased Chandler. In the third quarter, Powell should have scored on his kickoff return. It's the one that got knocked down right by the goal line. With no Giant near him, he fell on the 3-yard line and was pinned before he could get up. 3 plays later, Van Brocklin sneaked the ball over. A few minutes later, the Eagles clicked off 66 yards in 11 plays, with Theron Sapp plunging across from the 1. Then at the end of the period, the Eagle line stormed through to hit Charlie Connolly on an attempt to pass from his 5. The ball popped out of the quarterback's hands and was recovered in the end zone by Philadelphia's Chuck Weber. Giant fumble on a punt set up the Eagles on the New York 19 for their final score in the game's closing minutes. Sonny Jurgensen, standing in for Van Brocklin, covered the distance with a pass to McDonald in the end zone on the same play that had baffled the Giants previously. Between these sort of Philadelphia depredations, the Giants moved the ball smartly at times. Under Connolly's direction, they moved 73 yards in 10 plays to a second period touchdown by Frank Gifford from 5 yards out. That's probably that picture that it shows you right there. With George Shaw at the helm, they covered 83 yards in 9 plays and 89 yards in 9 plays for their fourth period touchdowns. Mel Triplett on a plunge from the 2 and Kyle Rote on a 10-yard pass from Shaw accounted for the scores. The absence of Jimmy Patton, New York's all-league safety man, undoubtedly contributed to McDonald's effectiveness. Don Sutherland, the rookie who filled in for the injured Patton, who was not able to give the support Crow needed to cover the speedy Philadelphian. The defeat was the worst suffered by the Giants since they were routed 62-14 by the Cleveland Browns in 1953. So, all right, so that's the New York Times. Now let's go to the Philadelphia Inquirer. We're going to go to the October 5th, 1959 edition of the Philadelphia Inquirer. See what they got to say here. All right, here we go. Eagles romp as McDonald scores 4. Lifted to startling heights by the tornado-like performance of speedy Tommy McDonald, the Eagles walloped the New York Giants to the outstanding tune of 49-21 before 27,023 delighted sun-baked onlookers at Franklin Field Sunday. McDonald, a jet-propelled 182-pounder who always has that vital extra burst in reserve, scored 4 big touchdowns as the Eagles rebounded with stunning violence from their opening game loss at San Francisco to even their NFL ledger in their home debut. During his greatest hours since coming here from the University of Oklahoma campus 3 years ago, McDonald scored on pass plays of 33, 55, and 19 and returned upon 81 thrilling yards for the other tally. Quarterback Norm Van Brocklin, who threw perfect strikes for McDonald's first two scores, rookie Theron Sapp and the linebacker Chuck Weber, who fell on a fumble in the end zone, also made touchdowns as the Eagles handed the Giants their worst setback since the Browns beat them 63-14. It was the most one-sided Philadelphia conquest of the New Yorkers since a 45-0 romp in 1948. That was the first year that the Eagles won the championship. They beat the Cardinals that year in a snowstorm. It was the second straight year Buck Shaw's Chargers upset the Giants here after losing their opening game. The Giants, who overcame last year's loss to win the Eastern title, were never in this one, although you'd never believe it by the statistics, which gave the Invaders a 333-299 net yard edge rushing and passing. The Eagles grabbed an early 14-0 lead, led at halftime 21-7, and skyrocketed their edge to 42-7 in the second half before the Giants were able to rally for two fourth-period touchdowns. Wow. Rookie Art Powell, who contributed one of the key blocks on McDonald's punt return TD in the closing minutes of the first half, provided one of the sunny day's big thrills when he returned the second half opening kickoff, 95 yards, probably the longest non-scoring such return in the league's history. Powell had a clear path to the goal, but inside the 5, he tried to take an extra long stride, and it threw him off balance. Wow. He stumbled and fell on the 2. Assistant coach Charlie Gower said later he thought Powell stepped in a hole at the same time the rookie lengthened his stride. I had no regrets since Van Brocklin scored on a 1-yard sneak 3 plays later. But this was a McDonald story from start to finish, another superlative chapter in a career that seems destined to be one of the most glorious in Eagle history. Although a marked man, McDonald caught 6 passes for 133 yards all told, and in addition to his spectacular punt return, he let's go to let's see here. This punt return, he galloped a total of 84 yards with 3 kickoffs. He scored the game's first TD late in the first period on the 5th play of a 65-yard drive. With perfect timing, he zoomed away from Lyndon Crow at the last split second and caught Van Brocklin's pitch in stride on the 5 and easily ran over to complete a 33-yard play. Early in the second quarter, he grabbed a down-the-middle Van Brocklin pass of 33 yards in front of 2 receivers and then seemed to leave them standing still as he zoomed the remaining 22 into the end zone. This capped an 80-yard drive on the 6th play. 7 minutes later, he provided the biggest thrill of all when he took Don Chandler's punt on the 19. He spun around Powell and ran toward the south sidelines until the latter sprung him free with a grand block. He scooted down the sidelines until he passed midfield, then veered to his right as Bob Pellegrini blocked Chandler at the 30 to give the Oklahoma kid a clear path to the goal on the 81-yard sprint. McDonald fittingly applied the frosting to the victory by making a falling end zone catch of Sonny Jurgensen's 19-yard pass for the final TD with 52 seconds remaining. See, that's something, it was 42-21 at the time. I mean, for the most part, things have changed a little bit. Yeah, that's not, unless there's some huge animosity or something like, or the team has to win the game by certain, whatever. That's not happening. There's 52 seconds remaining in a game, and you're up by 3 touchdowns, and you're down. Sonny, the 19-yard, and you're down around the other team's 20-yard line. You're taking a knee. You're not throwing passes into the end zone. So things have changed. The score came on the second play after Jerry Wilson recovered George Scott's fumble on the 20. So, if they recovered a fumble, they're just going to be they're just going to take a knee. The other team's not calling a timeout. They're just going to let the clock expire, and that's it. But that's not the way it was back then. Sapp scored the Eagles' fifth TD on a 1-yard dive over his left guard to cap an 11-play, 65-yard drive. McDonald caught Van Brocklin's passes for gains of 10 and 18 during the march before Sapp set up the score with a 17-yard end run to the 1. Weber got his tally shortly thereafter, just before the third period ended. Joe Robb, lanky rookie linebacker from Texas Christian, batted the ball out of Chuck Connolly's hands on the 5, causing it to bounce back into the end zone where Weber fell on it. Frank Gifford scored from the 5 to conclude a giant second period drive of 74 yards on the 10th play. In the final period, Mel Triplett tallied from the 1, and Kyle Rote caught a 10-yard pass from George Shaw in the end zone as the Giants drove 83 and 89 yards, respectively. Giants' famed defense was evident only in the opening minutes when the visitors took the ball on downs on the 2 after the Eagles had made a first on the 5 following a pass interference by rookie Gene Johnson on the first scrimmage play of the game. And you got the lineups. Not sure why there's a line going through the Eagles here, but and there's the scoring right there, and you got the receiving here. So you got the Giants. Actually more passing yards, more receiving yards. It just seemed like any time that the Eagle player caught a pass, it went in for a touchdown. But you can certainly see McDonald here was at 6 catches, 133 yards. Even Pat Summerall caught a pass. Look at that. 1 for 21 yards. Some of the Giants were getting blown out. They put George Shaw in there. And you got Rush in here. Nobody did an outstanding job. Gifford 9 times for 47 yards. That's not, average-wise, it's not bad. But, you see here, the Eagles ran 36 times for 76 yards, so they couldn't run the ball at all. My goodness, their best guy was Sapp. He ran 8 times for 32 yards, but Barnes 11 times for 20 yards, Peaks 8 for 13. They just couldn't stop the pass. They couldn't stop the pass. You see here, right? Giants lost 3 fumbles and had 2 passes picked off. Sloppy play. It'll get you beat. And it did. All right, so let's go to the October 5th, 1959 edition of the Daily News. This was the paper last week when the Giants played the Los Angeles out in California, Memorial Coliseum. The Daily News actually had, in their article, it had the Rams. It said really literally, the Rams were leading 21-20 in the fourth quarter. That's where it ended. And they had a story underneath that, but they didn't have the final score. They didn't know that the Giants wound up winning 23-21. All right, so let's go to the Daily News, October 5th, 1959 edition of the Daily News. Eagles whip Giants. You can say that again, 49-21. McDonald. How about McDonald? McDonald star. You had to see it to believe it here in sun-baked Franklin Field today as the Eagles pulverized the Giants 49-21 with the greatest rash of points scored against the New Yorkers since 1953. 7 touchdowns were scored over and through the bewitched, bothered, and bewildered Giant defense, 4 of them by the former Oklahoma All-American Tommy McDonald. Well, basically 2 were scored pretty much on, 2 of them were special teams, and 1 was scored by the Philadelphia Eagles. So the Giants' defense gave up kind of like 4 touchdowns, but they just couldn't handle Tommy McDonald, especially if Jimmy Patton was out. It was history repeating itself. For only a year ago, the same Philadelphia battery of Van Brocklin and McDonald upset the Giants on the same side. But that was a squeaker. This was a rout all the way, with the Eagles leading the defending Eastern Division champions turned chumps 42-7 going into the final period. Giants could do nothing right and the Eagles nothing wrong, but it might well have been a different story without the mercurial McDonald, who was hotter than the mid-80-degree temperatures in Penn's old pigskin park. The slender 25-year-old Oklahoman played his third year in the league, scored the first 3 Eagle touchdowns, giving his side a 21-7 bulge at the 12:57 mark of the second period, when he came back with a window dressing counter in the final minute of the game. Alternating as an end and flanker back, he drove the Giant pass defenders batty by spearing 6 aerials for 133 yards and 3 touchdowns. In addition, he exploded for another tally with a picture gallop of 81 yards on a punt return. The Giants were off on the wrong foot from the start. Chuck Connolly's pass on the initial play after the opening kickoff was picked off by the Eagles' Gene Johnson, but the New Yorkers escaped when Van Brocklin overthrew Dick Bielski in the end zone in a 4th down play from the 1 instead of going for a field goal. It was virtually the last defensive display of the game by the Giants and just about the only offensive error the Eagles committed all afternoon. A Van Brocklin to Bielski aerial and a 15-yard end run by Billy Barnes set the stage for McDonald's first touchdown. Van Brocklin pitched a 30-yarder and McDonald caught it on the 3 behind Crow after breaking downfield from a flanker right alignment. At 3:15 of the second, McDonald got behind Lyndon Crow again. In fact, he had him beaten by 5 yards. Woo! As he glued himself to a 35-yard Van Brocklin pass on the Giant 20 and raced to pay dirt, 55 yards in all. At this point, the Giants interrupted the Philly deluge temporarily by driving 73 yards in 10 plays, Frank Gifford punching out the score from the 5. 2 minutes from intermission, however, McDonald tucked a Chandler punt to his bosom on his 19, circled back to the 15, then toward the sidelines to his left for 81 yards and his 3rd touchdown. The Giant defense collapsed completely on the second half kickoff, and Powell burst up the middle on the longest run of the day, 95 yards. But he didn't score. He fell down on the 1 and hadn't the strength to get up. It didn't matter, though. Van Brocklin quarterback sneaked the 4th Eagle TD 3 plays later, and the count was 35-7. Wow. As a pass grabs by McDonald for 10 and 13 yards, plus the leather packing of Barnes and rookie Theron Sapp covered 65 yards. Sapp notched the counter with a 1-yard buck over guard. The Eagles' defense made the 6th touchdown. They mobbed Connolly as he was attempting a pass. Joe Robb batted the ball out of Chuck's hand, and Chuck Weber fell on it in the end zone. Coach Jim Lee Howell inserted George Shaw at quarterback after this debacle, and the ex-coach engineered an 84-yard 9-play drive, which culminated in a 2-yard scoring plunge by Mel Triplett. 6 minutes later, Kyle Rote punctuated a 96-yard march. That's the difference in newspapers. They got the totals. It wasn't a 96-yard march in the other papers. I think it was like an 86-yard march. I mean, one of these might be a typo error. But anyway, Kyle Rote punctuated a 96-yard march by tight-roping the sideline in the end zone to spear a 10-yard pass from Shaw. McDonald wasn't through yet. However, he garnered his 4th TD and the Eagles' 7th just with 52 seconds from the final gun as he mitted a 19-yard heave from Paul Jurgensen in the end zone. Or how about Sonny Jurgensen? The GOAT, Lyndon Crow, Natch McDonald's now owns personal possession of him. Not sure what that means, but having Alex Webster on the sidelines hurt, but the absence of veteran pass defender Jim Patton out with a sprained ankle was worse. Then again, probably neither Patton nor anyone else could have stopped McDonald today. What a hand the 27,023 fans gave the slender 180-pound speedster when he trotted off after his final tally. As I said, I mean, that wouldn't happen in today's game. Um, Yeah, I mean, especially if the Eagles, like I think I said, they recovered a fumble or they got a giant turnover with like about a minute to go in the game at the Giants 20. The Eagles were up 42-21. If the Giant today's game, the Giants ain't calling timeout to stop the club. They're down by 3 touchdowns. There's a minute to go in the game. The Eagles are going to take a knee, and the Giants ain't just going to let the clock run out, and the game's over. Back then, 1959, it just goes to show. Because I mean, you know how badly a coach would get crucified if they tried to do something like try to run a play or something like that, and a player got injured. Well, like Tommy McDonald, today's game, he's a Hall of Famer, wide receiver, and having him run a pass route in a play that doesn't matter, and he winds up something happens and he gets injured in a play. Wow, the coach would get crucified nowadays for something like that. That's why they just take a knee. But back then, if they can score, I mean, if they're in scoring range, they're trying to, but it is what it is. So, got a couple more articles here before we go. Let's see here. I gotta find it. There we go. All right. Where are we at here? Hold on here. Okay, this here is the Philadelphia Bulletin. Here we are right here. Oh, here we are. Let's see now here. He goes there on Sapp struggles in grip of New York Giants. Dick Lynch after being hauled down on the 1-foot line to cap a 29-yard run in the third quarter of yesterday's Franklin Field battle. And you'll notice here, one thing was interesting is that after the third week of the season, there's only one team that has an undefeated record. That would be the Green Bay Packers. After 2 look at the Eastern Division, everybody's 1-1. There's only 2 teams that are undefeated after 2 weeks. That's the 49ers and the Green Bay Packers, who would face each other in week 3, and the Packers would wind up winning. So after 3 weeks, there'd only be one undefeated team in the NFL in 1959. That would be the Green Bay Packers. Although they would get a slap of reality because they would wind up losing their next 5 games to go 3-5. But as with Vince Lombardi being the coach, they would win their final 4 games and finish the season at 7-5. Tom's jaw hurt. He didn't need it against the Giants. Even an aching jaw that almost tore off the top of his head couldn't stop Tommy the Terror McDonald from scoring 4 sensational touchdowns in Franklin Field yesterday and leading the explosive Eagles to an incredible 49-21 victory over the Giants. McDonald, who gave one of the most fantastic exhibitions of pass catching and running ever seen here, had an impacted wisdom tooth removed 2 days ago. Wow. That's freaking painful. Well, one thing I'll never disagree with, the Eagles are freaking, Tommy McDonald's unbelievable player. And Tommy and the Eagle players are freaking tough. Let me tell you what. A giant defender hit Tommy's right jaw early in the game and reopened the gaping wound. Wow. That's Tommy, assistant coach Charlie Gower said. Raw courage to go with tremendous skill. Wow. Coach Jim Lee Howe of the Giants had more to say about Tommy's terroristic tactics, accompanied by a strong Eagle defense that kept the bewildered Giants rocking on their heels all during the hot, sunny afternoon. We knew McDonald was the man we had to stop, but we didn't stop him, said Howe, whose Giants, along with the Eagles, now have a regular season record of 1-1. We didn't cover on passes, Howell added. We didn't cover on punts or kickoffs. We didn't block. We dropped our passes. We just didn't play. Well, that pretty much about covers it. Whereupon Eagle line coach Nick Skorich supplied what may have been the key to the Giants' defeat and the Eagles' invigorating comeback in their home opener after a listless 24-14 setback in San Francisco a week ago. The team did a tremendous job on defense, Scorch said. We killed their outside running. When you do that to the Giants, they are in trouble. On offense, Chuck Bednarik and Stan Campbell were powers. The return of rookie J.D. Smith at right tackle helped no end. And help no end? Okay. And Dick Bielski did a good job blocking on end runs. Howell just about amended this. We didn't think their line was as strong as ours, he said, but it was, and then some. Meanwhile, McDonald was holding his aching jaw, tears of pain in his eyes, and as ever, modestly passing over his accomplishments. In pulling out yesterday's rout, the Eagles piled sensation upon sensation. Fired to the hilt under the blazing sun, they took advantage of every break. Nobody could have asked for anything more exciting than McDonald's 81-yard return of a punt and R. Powell's 96-yard dash with a kickoff and its amazing denouement on the 3-yard line. The Eagles got down to business at 12:18 of the first period with a 65-yard scoring drive that needed only 5 plays. The first was a Norm Van Brocklin to Bielski 20-yarder. Van pitched 33 yards to McDonald's for the TD. Bobby Wilson added his first of 7 extra points. With the second period only 3 minutes gone, the Eagles hoisted their lead to 14-0 with an 80-yard 6-play drive that culminated with McDonald outraced defender halfbacks Lyndon Crow and Dick Nolan together in a 55-yarder from Van Brocklin. The Giants rebounded to make it 14-7 4 minutes later when 38-year-old Charlie Connolly put on his only exhibition of consistent passing. His targets were Joe Morrison, Frank Gifford, and Phil King. The drive covered 73 yards in 10 plays, Gifford darting 5 yards through a big hole at left guard for the score. Then the route began taking shape. Don Chandler punted high and deep to McDonald, who grabbed the ball on his 19, swung to his left, took advantage of Powell's opening block, raced right by a host of Giants, and scooted 81 yards for the score. Bob Pellegrini blotted out Chandler, the last man in Tommy's path. Just before the half ended, Tom Catlin recovered Gifford's fumble on a Connolly lateral on the Giants' 37. Then Bielski missed a field goal from the 40. The score could have been even worse. The crowd had scarcely settled for the second half when Powell took Summerall's kickoff on the 1, burst through the Giants' middle at the 20, and loped for the goal line. Loped for the goal line, I'm sorry. Then with the nearest Giant 10 yards behind him, Powell stumbled and fell at the 3. It didn't matter, though. 3 plays later, Van Brocklin rammed the middle to make it 28-7. The Eagles got their 5th TD at 8:28 of the third period. From his 37, Billy Barnes cut inside end on a third down for 16 yards. Again on third down, Van Brocklin passed to McDonald 4. The needed yardage. With the ball on the 18th, Aaron Sapp burst through tackle for 17 and on the next play dove over the middle for the score. Following Tom Brookshire's interception of a Connolly pass at midfield, Bielski tried another field goal, this from the 36, and was wide. But the Eagle line renewed its bedevilment of Connolly. After Ed Kayat nailed him for a 15-yard loss, 3 Eagles belted him again, and he fumbled. Linebacker Chuck Weber recovered the ball in the end zone to make it 42-7 at 13:28 mark of the same period. Jurgensen does well. The Giants got their second score at the start of the final quarter after George Shaw took over for Connolly. 32-yard run by Gifford plus some hard running by Mel Triplett enabled the New Yorkers to travel 83 yards in 9 plays. Triplett plunged over from the 1. The next and final Giants score at 9:28 was another long 89 yards in 9 plays. The big one was a 42-yard throw from short to Bob Schnooker, followed by a 10-yard scoring heave to Kyle Rote. Sonny Jurgensen, meanwhile, had taken over the Eagles quarterbacking for the first time in eons. The Duke Redhead had the chance to throw what he could show what he could do. He did it right well. Harassed by Eagle rookie linemen Joe Robb and Jerry Wilson, the Giants' George Scott fumbled at a punt on his own 20. Wilson recovered. 2 plays later, Jurgensen threw 19 yards to his roommate, Tommy McDonald, who caught the ball 2 feet inside the deep right end zone. As I said, that wouldn't happen in the final minute of a game nowadays, but is what it is. So that was the Philadelphia Bulletin. That was the October 5th, 1959 edition of the Philadelphia Bulletin. And finally, we got the Philadelphia Daily News, the October 5th, 1959 edition of the Daily News. This is Tommy McDonald here. It only just begun. Just the beginning for his 81-yard touchdown punt return is this fakery by Tommy McDonald as he gets past sprawling Don Sutherland of the Giants, number 26. And here we go. Sneaking past would-be Giant tacklers Pat Summerall and Dick Lynch. Eagles' Art Powell eludes whole opposing team, but misses touchdown after 95-yard run when stepped in a hole on the 2. He said he stepped in a hole. So there's Pat Summerall right here trying to make some kind of attempt. I'm not sure. I don't know what the heck happened there. He's looking this way, and Powell's running right past him, but touchdown Tommy. We can do this every Sunday. There's a spotter in the radio booth at Franklin Field who used to groan every time he saw Tommy McDonald waiting under a punt. He won't groan anymore. One of the things Tommy proved yesterday while he was sparking the Eagles to an amazing 49-21 upset over the Giants was that he doesn't spend so much time running sideways and backwards just to make people nervous. The great little scatback from Oklahoma U scored touchdowns on pass plays of 33, 55, and 19 yards against the Giants' vaunted aerial defenses, but the score that gave him the biggest charge was an 81-yard punt return in the second quarter. It's the cheapest touchdown in football if you really work on it, Tommy explained after his brilliant day. 1 or 2 good blocks and you're on your way. Yesterday, he had 2 blocks that were more than good. The first was a smasher by rookie Art Powell on an ex-Eagle Tom Scott to spring the run back. The second was applied by Bob Pellegrini on Don Chandler, the man who punted the ball and the last man who had a chance of nailing McDonald. And characteristically, little Tommy ran backwards, then sideways before breaking upfield. I just wanted to fake Scott over a little to where Art could get a good shot at him, McDonald explained. Did you see how he clobbered him? After that, I had an open alley to the goal. And the thing that really tickled me was the way old Pellegrini kept shaking his finger at Chandler as if to tell me he was as good as gone. That TD sprint coupled with 133 yards and 6 pass receptions and 84 yards on 3 kickoff returns. Wow, so he had basically like almost 300 yards of offense between kick returns, punt returns, and pass receptions. Wow. Gave McDonald only 35 yards less and 1 touchdown more than the entire Giants offense. I had 3 or 4 games like this with Oklahoma, Tommy recalled. But considering the difference in competition, I'd have to say this was my biggest thrill in football. But McDonald, who's probably the most modest guy ever to make All-American, marry a beauty queen, and drive a sports car, insisted it was a team victory. There was none of that locker room pep talk stuff before the game, Tommy disclosed. But you could just sense the way everyone felt. We were disgusted with that game we played against the 49ers last week, and we were determined to make up for it. Can the Eagles do it again, or was this just the flukiest game of a fluky day in the NFL? We can do it every Sunday, McDonald insisted. This team is 100% improved over last year, and how right he is. Look at that Stan Campbell we picked up from Detroit. I think he's a fabulous guard. Jerry Huth is real good too, and I've never seen fellas pick up so quickly as J.D. Smith and Daryl Oshbacher. Do you call that kind of a line weak? Jim Lee Howell did. As coach of the Giants, he was able to view the Eagles objectively, if somewhat painfully. His verdict was that the Birds are more than 100% improved over the tailenders of 1958. Starting with McDonald, of course, Howell chanted a litany of praise for people like quarterback Norman Brocklin. He picked us apart. Halfback Billy Barnes. He could help any team in this league. Rookie halfback Theron Sapp. He's a runaway truck. And linebacker Pa Pellegrini. He loves to hear people grunt. Even the oddity of the day was an Eagle thrill. Powell, the same man who had sprung McDonald loose for the at 81-yarder in the closing minutes of the first half, came back to take the second half kickoff for 95 yards before stepping in a hole and flopping on the 2-yard line. McDonald didn't return the courtesy. When I looked to see what way to throw a block, Tommy confessed old Powell was already 30 yards upfield. Man, that's moving. Tommy McDonald should know he's an expert on the moving business. All right. Well, so that's the punt return right here for the touchdown, and here's the kickoff return, almost for a touchdown. So, I mean, in every way, shape, and form, this was a just total massacre. I mean, a punt return for a touchdown, almost a kickoff return for a touchdown, a defensive touchdown for the Eagles, and 4 touchdowns. They moved up and down the field, but I mean, they also made the Giants had the turnovers and they made them pay. The final score of the game came almost a couple plays after the turnover. So, the Giants did not play a good game at all, and the Eagles certainly made them pay. But it's a long season, But it was a very, very good day for the Eagles, and not a good game for the Giants. But when all was said and done, at the end of the season, both teams had fantastic seasons. The Eagles would be 7-5, improved big time from their 2-win 1958 season, and the Giants would be 10-2 and would take their act into the 1959 championship game, where once again they would lose to the Baltimore Colts. So that's the way it was on this date, October 4th, 1959, as the New York Giants would play the Philadelphia Eagles at Franklin Field in pro football, first 50 years. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.